This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
Welcome to the Tragedy Academy, a show created to bridge societal divides in a judgment-free zone using candor and humor. My name is Jay. We're joined today by Dr. Adi Jaffe. He is a UCLA-trained psychologist, TEDx speaker, author of The Abstinence Myth and Unhooked, expert in addiction, mental health, leadership, and transformation. How you doing today, Dr. Jaffe?
I'm good, Jay. How are you doing, man?
Like I said earlier, man, I'm living the dream.
Yeah, good. Glad to hear that.
A lot of people always ask, we're like, well, that means that everything's going great, right? Well, yeah, not necessarily.
Don't you wish?
Right? It's understanding the reality of who you are and where you are in the greater position of things. It's a dream.
I love that. And sometimes just having gratitude for even some of the challenges or things that you used to bemoan because you understand that they are realities, and, you know, being upset about them doesn't really help anybody.
Bemoaning something is definitely an interesting way to describe that. It's very correct. Sometimes words don't land quite on the mark. That's why we have to use metaphors so often. But every now and then you see a sniper. And then someone like yourself who can hit the exact contextual item that you need for that situation. But again, that's why I love metaphors, because I don't have to always be right. All I have to do is conceptualize it and I can lead you there. But I appreciate that you had such a broad vocabulary there. So thank you. I learned something new today.
No, thank you. Thank you, man. That's how, I think, you know, we're talking about turning tragedy, but I think what you just talked about is probably one of the most important concepts, and that is the frame you have, right? The perspective you take on your life is probably at least one of the most important ingredients.
Absolutely. So while we get started here, I want to give you a minute, tell everybody who you are, kind of what you represent, what you're doing right now, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, I'll say it this way because you shared a lot of the letters and the history.
The bullet points.
Yeah, the bullet points. But I'll say it like this: I'm a person who's known struggle through a whole series of trials and tribulations. Ended up finding a way. I was going to say my way, but that's pretty obvious. But I found a way to a life that is pretty incredible at this point. Again, as you mentioned, Jay, pretty damn close to a dream. By the way, things aren't even perfect in the dreams that I have. So why would they be in me living a dream in reality? But my life is incredible. I have thousands of things to be grateful for on a daily basis. And so now I've made it my life to, while I handle that and do all the work that it takes to maintain that, continuing to be true for the long run, also turning my attention to a lot of other people who have found themselves in a similar situation to the one that I had now 22 years ago, and figuring out how to help as many of them come back.
You know, it's funny how we can wallow in the depths of addictions or despair and trials and tribulations, only to find out that when you look back, there are several waypoints that are directing you to the exact point you're going to look back at and say, these are where those tools came from. That night on the bathroom floor where I went through this and I was feeling this because of this, that's relatable. That's a real story. That's somebody else out there that has felt that despair. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the cold of the bathroom floor. It could be anywhere, right? Yeah. Because that despair exists in every state because it's part of potential, right? But if you can pay attention to it and if you can recognize it, then you can start to control how you feel about it.
Yeah, I would say all that is true. And when you start paying attention to it, you see that it actually continues repeating in life.
It's a Fibonacci sequence, man.
So as you elevate, the suffering sometimes actually gets bigger because you have more to lose and there's bigger weight sometimes, right? All of a sudden, before you were alone, so it was alone suffering. Now you got a family or a wife or a husband or a partner. Now you got kids. Now you've got a business. Now you have money and a home. Like, if this goes well, you'll have a lot more to lose in 20 years every single time something big happens that shakes you to the core. And I was literally leading a group about this yesterday. Life doesn't ask us for permission. It doesn't let us know in advance. It goes, here's what's on the table today, deal with it. And again, if you start waiting for reality to fix itself, you're going to be waiting a very long time, probably right up until your last breath, because life is going to keep doing what it does. The universe is going to keep doing what it does. If you believe in God, God is going to keep doing whatever wording you want to give to it. We are here to make the best of every situation, even when it's a bad one to get us started with. And I have millions of examples from my own life and clients where, again, it's that perspective shift. And when you all of a sudden get it, as you just mentioned, it opens up. It's like I equate it. You want to talk about metaphors? I love metaphors. Remember that old Minecraft game on PCs? Like, you would get it for free.
Yes, the mine hunting game where you would click like 1, 4, 3, or 2, whatever it was next to.
Yeah, and then sometimes you would only get one little new square. Sometimes you would hit a bomb.
I hated when that happened, where I had to just intuition it.
Yeah. And then sometimes you would get a whole new room that would open up for you. And I think in a weird way, because, they literally just used it as a control teaching tool for people with numbers. But in a weird way, it's such a cool metaphor for life. Oftentimes we're taking turns believing we know something and they're totally random. And sometimes we think we don't know anything, but our intuition guides us. And it's just this interesting game if you can start playing it that way. And again, in the end, the rewards are whatever we make them, right? Because I know I've worked with people who are incredibly wealthy and from the outside, let's say, or celebrities or musicians on tour, who from the outside, everybody says, oh my God, I wish I had that life. But I know them from the inside, and that's not the feeling at all. So, it's all a matter of perspective for me.
The mask gets heavier with time and responsibility, and you have to maintain it. And you end up looking like that old, it's probably considered something that's not appropriate now, but they had like the witch doctor mask that was giant on the little person in the cartoons back in the day. Right. Yeah. And they would run around. To me, that's what I envision on a life-size scale on humans. As you begin to navigate life, right? Like I said earlier, that Fibonacci sequence, imagine life as a temporal start point into a nautilus shell, right? And you begin going through life. And every time you go around, there's a chamber on there, right? And that's a new belief, a new system, a new understanding, a new pain, a new trauma, whatever they are, right? But they're all like veils. You'll continue to go through these circles and you'll feel like you have the layers of life over you, that those experiences define you to a degree that they will impede you or create habits or ways to defend yourself or other weird manifestations of it. But in reality, it's silk. It's like spider webs. It's nothing, right? But we'll find ways to plug those holes.
We're about 80% air, really, right? The particles that we are made of. So we ourselves are an example of that.
I am hot gas. No,
you know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy to think about. It's, I love that.
Yeah, I just like to think that I'm not the sum of my actions in the past, that I can control the now and the narrative at any given moment. Because the past is non-existent. While it can remain a pain or something that we cling to, good, bad, or indifferent, it's still not there. You've never been there. I've never been there. If I said meet me there, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen in the future either. That doesn't exist either. That's just something that you're conceptualizing, right? Wasting what time? Now. Worry is preposterous. I think it's a Chinese philosopher that said that. Couldn't be any truer. Who the fuck needs to worry?
Yeah.
Right? All it is just wasting time in the now about something that you're not going to get right.
Yeah, and I think it is also important for me, at least, right? For me in my path where I am right now, to recognize that worry is like these little strings pulling on me,
Mm.
and that in my effort to become more Buddha-like over time, I also need to care for, I don't know if nourish is the right word, or more like accept and hold those parts of me that get pulled on, because by rejecting them, shaming them, by not allowing them to find their expression, I'm actually, I think I'm disempowering them, but I'm actually making them yell stronger in order to call for my
100%.
attention. And so, and I think that's the game so many people play, right? To the point you made right at the outset, Jay. It's people think you get to, or many people's impression is that you get to a place where the worry disappears. But what happens is you get to a place where you are not controlled by the worry, and you can play with it, and you can see it for what it is, and you can analyze it for what it means, so that you can go resolve the core issue that led you to the worry. And I would argue in a way that's actually the entire point of my last book, Unhooked, is I use the example of addiction in the book. But addiction is a habit developed over time to deal with struggles. Some of those are physical, some of those are emotional, many of them are developmental and behavioral from very early on.
Layers or layers.
Yeah, and exactly. It's just the addiction is just an example of the thing we're talking about, right? Every version of suffering is the same example, but we're going to use addiction because that's where I developed my expertise initially. And that's where I learned that I need to learn about everything else, is because I learned early on, I'm talking like 13, 14 years ago when I started treating people, that addiction wasn't about addiction at all. And here I had all these people trying to figure out how to get people to stop using cocaine. And they were like trying to create medications for it, a cocaine specific treatment. I'm like, hold on. Nobody's using cocaine. I have friends
that have legitimately told me, never touch cocaine, Jay. You're way too intense. Like they just said, they're like, we can't deal with you if you ever even tried that. I'm like, no, I don't have a desire to. But I can recognize how that could actually pull from a hidden child. I kind of want to take a step forward, but also back at the same time. Because we live on two sides of the same coin. And in order for you to be in the position you are now and talk about it, you had to have been in another position to have perspective, right? Yeah. So why don't you tell everybody where you earned your stripes?
Yeah. I'm a first generation immigrant, meaning, my family emigrated to this country. I wasn't born here. I was born in Israel. Moved to the US when I was 14. I didn't realize how life altering that was, how seminal that really was in my life. It seemed like an adventure when it started. Hey, do you want to move to America? Sure, why not? That's where Disneyland and Disney World is. But I'd lived in the same apartment, knew the same kids since I was born almost, right? Went to school across the street. I mean, small neighborhood. I knew everybody, short of 4 or 5 kids who moved into our neighborhoods and a few people who moved out. Same group of friends my entire life. And then all of a sudden I was untethered into a different country with different language, where I was the foreign kid who spoke weird and sat at the foreign kid table because I had no friends to get started. And, all this stuff that was honestly completely different. I mean, people where I moved in Chicago, and I don't talk about this story often, but I think it speaks to why I felt so alien. They knew so little about where I came from that they literally asked me if I rode camels to school. And I had to tell them, no, my parents had cars and we drove. So nobody understood me. I had a hard time understanding others. I felt very alone and isolated. And it wasn't until much later in life that I figured this out, right? At the time, I was just sort of fighting for survival. But 14, my first year out here, maybe I was 15. I think I was 14 though. I went to a sleepaway camp with other kids who moved from Israel, and I got introduced to alcohol. And I tell this story in my book, but it was love at first drink. It was, I didn't know what I was getting when somebody handed me a warm vodka, but I took 2 chugs to just look cool and almost threw up because it was so freaking disgusting. And 20 minutes later, I could talk to girls and I could feel okay with myself. And I'd never really felt comfortable in my skin. I was okay. I was like mid-level popular, right? Like in the middle of the pack, but I always felt awkward. And so all of a sudden I didn't feel awkward. And I started drinking as often as I could. I started drinking every weekend when I got invited to parties where people drank. I started being more social and feeling more comfortable being more social, right? Got a girlfriend, like all that stuff that I'd always wanted showed up for me. And then we moved. Another girl I liked handed me some weed. I was now 16 and a half. I was definitely not going to say no to a girl that I liked. Plus, who knows? Why not? I like taking chances. So started smoking weed. By the time I was 18 and went to college, I was smoking weed and drinking every single day. And, not drinking all day, but drinking in the evening, but smoking weed all day. And then it just kept escalating, right? So Coke came in. I didn't really love Coke a lot. Acid, mushrooms, ecstasy, like anything I could get my hands on. Then at 21, I moved out to Los Angeles, kind of lost my bearings again because I was so far away. Eventually got really into the rave scene. And that's where I started selling drugs because I was using so much that I couldn't afford them.
You know what? Let's pause right there. I think that's a good spot to take a break, and we'll be right back. Dr. Jaffe, you were talking about how you had gone from being a casual to / full-time user of recreational drugs of all kinds. You sound like the connoisseur of everything. It's kind of like that guy on Canal Street that opens his jacket up and he's got a little watch and this and that and everything in it, right? That's what I'm envisioning, right? But always smiling, happy. Yeah. You weren't upset to be high or drunk or any of those things. You never are in the beginning.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, I can get into the specifics, but it was always circumstantial. Like this girl that I really liked and met asked me if I'd done ecstasy. I'd only done it once before, but we started doing it. Now we're doing it every other weekend with our friends and it's costing me too much money. So I started figuring out how to buy enough drugs in order to sell them to my friends so then I can get my drugs for free. And then everybody likes it and tells their friends about it because I'm the nice guy with the coat. And so all of a sudden I've got like 50 clients that are buying ecstasy from me and I'm buying enough quantity to start making some money off of it. So I make some money. And then people ask, can you get us coke? Can you get us ketamine? Can you get us GHB? Can you get us meth? And I never really tried meth. And I didn't know if you would have asked me the 5 hours before I got it for the first time for one of my clients, I would have not been able to tell you what it is or what it does, to be perfectly honest. I'd never been interested in it.
But I got it for them. It's a manufactured drug that comes from specific areas initially. So the lineage of it is not known around the country in some areas, but you come to South Florida and you mention it and you got some guy that's breaking it down like he's a fucking genius. Right.
Yeah,
he'll tell you the entire structure.
I met a lot of those people in my time after I started dealing it, because you get into this nebulous world in a very different way than like cocaine and ecstasy. You don't meet the cocaine manufacturers, but in the States, especially back in those days, you would meet the cookers pretty quickly if you got in there. So I got behind on finals. One of my friends was like, "Hey, you should try some meth. You can study for finals." That's the first time I did it, was to go study, and it worked like a freaking charm. I stayed up for 3 days and taught myself accounting. I got a B in an accounting class that I never went to, because for 3 days I sat with the books, I did all the homework, and I got a B in it. And I was like, oh my God, this is magic. I will never not use this for finals. And then all of a sudden it became, I will never not use this for midterms and tests. And then it was for papers. And next thing you know, I'm using meth every single day. It became a big part of what I sold. And I'll fast track to really how the book ends. How the book starts. I mean, I got people selling for me. I started selling in bigger quantities. I was bringing in pretty good money. And then the Beverly Hills SWAT team came to pay me a visit and put that to a grinding halt. I'd had other smaller.
Why does Beverly Hills make it sound less painful or less tragic?
Because it was.
I feel like they show up.
It was. So were they wearing high heels?
No, I'm kidding.
No. Not at all. No, the SWAT team part itself sucked as much. I mean,
I bet it did. It scared the shit out of me.
It's 12 guys in all black. I don't think they had shields, but they had shotguns aimed at my head.
I'd rather have a shield.
But it was like, but I had a gun next to me. Like they were right. They weren't arresting the wrong guy. I had a gun next to my bed. If they would have come in knocking slightly, I don't know what would have happened with the gun and the shotgun. I hope I would have been fucking smart enough to not be an idiot, but who knows? I was high on meth. So I was actually passed out in my bed on GHB, and they kind of got me out of this comatose sleep, and I woke up to just shotguns in my head. So that's how it all ended. And I was using an 8-ball of meth a day at that point, which for people who have a hard time keeping track, that's about $300 to $400 worth of drugs per day. Multiply that out, I had like $100,000 a year drug habit.
So for those that don't know, methamphetamine is a manufactured drug. It's made. Yeah. It's got some heinous shit in it. And it does stuff to the mind that other drugs do not. And it also causes...
You're saying lye is not good for the body.
Right? Yeah, no, it's definitely not good for the body. Neither is rat poison, neither is all the other shit that's in there. No, I'm 100% with you. My camera just like super focused on me, so I'm sorry if that happened to you. Like, I think there's like a hand... Hey, look, I figured it out. At any rate, yeah, methamphetamines will also stay in your system for a long time. Not the high, but the stuff that comes from it, the withdrawals, the dreams, the nightmares, all of the things that come along with that unnatural addiction to some kind of chemical. It's supposed to be unholy.
I had, the way I described it is when I started out with meth, day 1 was amazing, all the way to like day 2.5, day 3. Day 3, you got tired. Day 4, you needed to go to sleep. You were really out of sorts. When you finish using meth, day 1, you almost feel normal. Day 2, you feel pretty shitty. Day 3, you feel like dying. Like it completely flips on you. But the problem is, and this is what happened to me. So I got arrested by the SWAT team. First day I spent at the Beverly Hills police station, as you mentioned, much nicer. I got moved the next day to LA County Jail. And I also had a broken leg, so they moved me to the hospital section. Very brutal. It was terrible. I mean, it's literally guys who have broken their arms, broken their legs, got shot.
Some of them on purpose.
Some of them jumping out of windows on purpose to get away from the police. It's like, it was a nightmare to be in. But the one silver lining, I guess, of having a meth addiction resolve in that jail is I slept for 5 days straight. I could not get out of bed. If you paid me money, I would not have been able to go for a walk in the yard. I couldn't do it. So I would sleep. Somebody would make me up for food. I would eat the food and I would pass out. That was literally 5 days. And on day 5, I was finally able to sit up in bed and come to. So at least I wasn't there for the first 5 days of hell. On that 5th day, I had to go to court. And I started out with about $1 million bail, but they ended up reducing it because of, I'll say it plainly. I'm a white guy, and
thank you for admitting to that. Like, that's an obvious thing for other people to see, but sometimes we like to deny. Dude, I understand that I came from poverty and got to a good station in life because I get along well with a sport coat on. Right?
Yeah.
A sport coat takes me from fucking...
Right, the judge. Yeah. Exactly. So I was very privileged in that moment. They lowered my bail substantially. My parents were able to post bond, and I got out. And then I went to rehab. And that started... You asked about stripes. That's where I earned my stripe. The rest of it I had to learn along the way. And I actually went a very non-traditional way. So I did... Anyway, I got kicked out of my first rehab. There was a lot of stuff that I did wrong along the way, of course, as well.
You have to.
But I ended up going back to school. I couldn't get a job. I had 9 felonies. I served a year in jail. But I got 8 years. I got what's called 1+7. So I got a 7-year suspended sentence. So if I ever revoked probation or anything else happened, I would get 7 years added to whatever I did next. And that was a good enough. I call it the sword of Damocles in my book. It's like just this little sword hanging over your head.
Sometimes people need that to get their life together.
I think it helped me. I don't know if I would have needed it because I didn't go without it, but it certainly didn't hurt me to know that if I mess up, I'm spending at least a decade in prison. But the issue was I had 9 felonies on my record. In order to get that reduced sentence, I had to plead guilty to 9 felonies. And when I got out, nobody would hire me. I mean, there was manufacturing, drug. It was not a good rap sheet, so I couldn't get hired anywhere, which is why I ended up going to school serendipitously, and it's all worked out since.
So I'd like to think about what the juxtaposition is when you're looking at people in this situation with the new lenses that you have, having been the one that had given drugs to people or sold it, used it recreationally, and now someone's standing in front of you. You've gone through UCLA. You've become Dr. Jaffe. Now you're looking back at what I'd like to think is an echo from your past, right? And those echoes from your past, you get an opportunity to stand in front of and deflect them from repeating themselves. What is it like then?
The experience certainly do echo. I think there's another piece that I was very glad to find myself having because it wasn't there. Actually, two. It wasn't there before all this happened. Both of these things. Humility and lack of judgment.
Interesting.
I was a very judgmental person who thought I knew it all when I was running the streets, and life seemed like it was proving me right from my perspective, right? I always joke this again. We both like metaphors, so we'll keep using them. Although this is not a metaphor, this is a reference. But Scarface was one of my favorite movies back in those days. Still a great movie, by the way. But
Absolutely.
A lot of us kind of idolize the protagonist, Tony Montana. And it took until after my arrest, and I'll tell you a funny aspect of this, but it took until after my arrest for me to really recognize that his friends and colleagues shot him in the back with shotguns, AK-47s, and like blew his house up because of how much of an asshole he was. So this person that I looked up to was not exactly a great role model. Now, here's the irony. I don't know how many people have ever seen this movie who are listening to this, but remember that scene when he gets shot up in the dance club and he goes to confront his main dealer, the Jewish guy that he deals with, and he's kind of bandaged up and he's got the gun on the table. I don't know if you remember that scene.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie, but I remember.
Famous shot. Well, I had a poster literally the size of the wall behind me. I'm talking a 10 foot by 6 foot poster above my couch in the apartment where the cops arrested me. And after they lifted me from my bed, they put me, because I had a broken leg, so they had to lift me from my bed. They sat me down on the couch in front of the Scarface poster. And it was like the biggest irony on the face of the planet that I could even imagine in that moment of this person I was idolizing. And now I'm sort of in the situation he's in, right? He's now hurt. He's down. He's struggling. And there I was, SWAT team coming into my house, searching everywhere, the air ducts, broken leg under that poster. So it all came back around. Fortunately, I was not shot by my colleagues. I wouldn't snitch. That's why I ended up getting 8 years, but instead of getting away. But I was not shot by
Sometimes those years are in better favor than what could happen for snitching. So
yeah, I didn't want to live the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. And also, by the way, I chose the life I chose, so it wasn't their fault. Why was I going to make them go down?
Fair enough.
So there was a lot. There was a lot in my story that led to me not being employable, going back to school, and now when I got out, you asked about the work and the mirror. Who the hell am I to judge? I have a PhD now. I definitely back in the day, I was nobody to judge, but like I have a PhD. I've got a family. I've got kids. I've got a house. I make enough money to know that we're probably going to be able to eat and keep this house next month. But who am I to judge anybody who's down and out right now, given the fact that I know I was there back then? So that's humility, and that together have really helped me, I believe, do better work.
It's amazing the lenses that we obtain through life that allow us to view people in positions that are less advantageous to ours just through simple clues around them. Right. For me, it was seeing a friend of mine come running into my barracks room, something so simple. He's laughing, got his hand over his mouth, and he's like, "Hey, Clint threw me the remote control and broke my front tooth." I said, "What?" was like, this is fucking bullshit. I'm laughing. He pulls his hand down and he's like, sure as shit, his front tooth's fucking snapped in half. And I'm like, dude, I'm laughing, because I'm like, this is funny. He's missing his front tooth. Back of my head hurt bad. Because my friend, who was college educated, who is an intellectual guy who was well read in all these different ways, for some reason, my mind wanted him to be dumb, poor, anything that you could associate, homeless or destitute, whatever it was, my brain wanted me to put him in that position, even though I knew he wasn't. Right? That bothered me. Right? And I feel like, how many times in life have I looked at a missing tooth that had a PhD? Right? You don't know. It's perspective. You can't judge it because you really are that fallible through your own lenses.
Yeah, there's a point. First of all, perspective is huge, and there's a whole chapter dedicated to it in my new book for people who anybody who hasn't figured this out yet. The way you look at the world is not true. So, if you need more, I have a whole chapter on in my book, and there are a lot of other books written on this. But I think it's an important element to mental health and addiction, because again, like we talked about right from the first sentence, perspective matters a lot here.
So let's do this.
And the point you just speak to now,
when we get back, I want you to tell everybody why it's not true.
Sure.
Right? That's exactly what we're going to. I think it's a perfect place to leave off for a break here when we get back.
Love it.
All right, welcome back, man.
Yeah.
Let's hear the truth.
All right. So, the point I make in my book is that I have this, I'll take people through a slight exercise that I do in the book, and I do it with many of my clients, everybody tells us that the world doesn't revolve around us, but for each one of us, it actually does, right? You wake up in the morning and the entire world, you are the center of it. And you kind of everything emanates from you. So like right now, other than in my camera, I can't see the wall behind me, right? But if I turn, I'll see the wall and I won't see you. The world I see is only interpreted through my experience. So what ends up happening to the vast majority of us, and everybody's had the experience that I'm about to talk about, but you may not have given as much weight as you needed to. You grew up in whatever family you grew up in. Maybe you had a full-time nanny and you went on private jet vacations. Maybe you didn't know if you're going to eat that day and your father came home, sat in front of the TV, or maybe you didn't have a TV. They got drunk or they showed up home drunk and they punch you in the face every single time. Like both of those are realities of people that I've worked with, right? Growing up, you thought that was normal because it's all you saw. And so both of those things sound like complete juxtapositions of one another, right? They are the mirrors of each other, if you will, right? The good and bad is why I painted them that way. But they're realities for some people out there, and they're complete, unimaginable nightmares or dreams for others. You grew up in your version of reality, and you use that lens. And research shows us we're talking early, like from right before you're born till like 8 to 10 years old is the window where most of your understanding of what is real and what is normal gets set. So take yourself back to that age and figure out what was good and what was not. And you did not have any control over it. Well, you didn't have any control over it. You had no say in what happened. And you learned by seeing and modeling others. So take that, and now you walk out into the world and you interpret everything through these colored lenses. But almost nobody that I know, I try to do this with my kids to some extent, but it's hard. Almost none of us grew up in an environment where our parents, our neighbors, our aunts and uncles, our grandparents, our friends said to us, hey, look, I'm going to tell you something, but I don't know that it's actually true. It's just what I believe to be true. That's not how it was said. They told you this is good, this is bad. Do this, don't do this. If you do this, you'll be a good person. If you do this, you'll be a bad person. Never walk over there. Always walk over here. Here's what you should do for a job, right? Like nobody presented it to you as an alternative or an option. They just presented it as truth.
It's all learned at the end of the day. Everything you're describing is a learned reaction to everything. I was explaining to somebody the other day. I said, look,
it's learned like at your cellular level.
Yes.
Right. It's
so fluid that you could literally have somebody tell a child from the day they were born that every time a lamb is born, a baby dies. Sure. Every single day of their life. How long before they break down in tears for the opposite reason of a lamb being born? They're crying for the death of a baby, not for the happiness of life.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But feels fucking real.
Yeah.
Even though you and I would know it's not true.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
So
shame again as well.
So that's when I talk about truth, I try to get everybody to start off from an understanding that it's all subjective. All of our experiences are subjective. I do believe that what we gain, and this took me a very long time, but what I tell a mountain story in the book, I'll save that for people who want to read the book, but I'll get to the point. The closer you want to get to actually understanding the truth, what you do is the opposite of what comes intuitively, unfortunately, psychologically. Psychologically, we're attracted to people who see the world the same way as we do. But then all we're doing is we're narrowing our focus on a smaller and smaller slice of reality, because all the idiosyncratic pieces get taken away, and all we get is the commonalities of the way we look at the world, and we end up looking at a very small sliver of what's possible. If you want to get a deeper and deeper understanding of reality, what you should do is talk to as many different people with as many different life experiences and vantage points. Go to as many different countries, learn about as many different histories, because their version is 100% true for them, like your version is 100% true for you. So if you understand them and you've now gained 2 perspectives, and 3, and 4, and 5. And at some point, everybody goes through this. Sometimes 2 is not enough, but everybody goes through this. You expose yourself to enough different timestamps from other people, different perspectives. And at some point, the realization hits of like, oh shit, I don't even know if what I believe is more true than what they believe, or if the reality is this amalgamation of all of the combined averages of sorts, right? And so what I really push on people is just keep trying to push your edge, right? Keep going right past your comfort zone. Try to do something on a regular basis that challenges you, because you will never grow. No matter how deeply you go into the depths of what you believe right now, you will never grow horizontally, right? You will never get more breadth out of your current knowledge. And so your job is not, that's what most of us do, unfortunately, is we like what we like. And so we keep going after it over and over and over, but that gets us much, much deeper. It doesn't really get us wider. And it's like, if I'm going to get a slice of the world of vision, do I really want to just see everything that is 5,000 miles that direction? Or do I want to start having some peripheral vision?
You're not wrong. I think that's a beautiful way to look at it. When we approach life and realize that there is a shoreline, however, the shoreline is not fixed. Shorelines change over time. They will always change. The only thing permanent in life is change. Right? But you bring up a great point about potential, right? Potential is the shoreline. It's where the water meets the sand. It's where creation is made. And if you live in that location and you let all things fall to the side, you'll realize that that is you. You're not the sum of anything else. You're the sum of what you create in the now. The rest is a memory, and the rest is something that's got implied weights to it. Shame, guilt, happiness, told that you should feel ways in certain situations. But it's for you to figure out that if you're only the sum of your potential, then you can sit down and be you. You don't need any of those things, because that's when you become the puzzle piece. You say you look for other people that you're like. The moment that you are 100% you, then you find the spot you fit in. You don't have to bend your corners anymore. You don't have to fold the edge. You actually fit into the spot that is the sky of your puzzle. And all the people around you love you for you, where you belong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see you creating other people's moments to identify the fact that they're a unique puzzle piece.
Yeah. And a lot of people, like I was, come to addiction as a way to try to bend the edges, to fold the corners and all that stuff, right? That's where the metaphor lines up with my kind of work. It's, I'm socially anxious, so there's something wrong with me, versus, hey, how do I get more comfortable with people if that's what I really want, right? Like I was always looking at the negative and trying to sort of head it off. And in a way, to this day, by the way, I'm much more introspective and introverted than a lot of other people that I know. And some people think that makes that I'm standoffish or that I'm not nice because of that, because I retreat sooner. We could have a get together at our house, and at 10 o'clock, I may just go to my room. Like, I'm done. I can't socialize anymore. And I used to think that was wrong. And then I went, hold on. This is my house. It's my party. Like, who says I have to keep going? My wife wants to keep hanging out with people. She can. I get to retreat. And that took me many, many years. I would argue decades, not years, to realize.
Isn't it amazing? Because that's self-love. That's recognizes you that you have worth beyond what other people think of you, and you're being there. That you have that opportunity to take care of yourself.
Yeah, worth is certainly part of it. Also, the idea that what others around me paint as the ideal is not necessarily true. And that was hard for me because, look, I joke about this. I do a lot of consulting now and coaching. That's how I make my money, because the company that I do that helps people who got out of prison and jail and people who sign up for $20 and $40 subscriptions a month with us or a week with us, that doesn't pay for anything. It actually just costs me money every month. But I love doing that work.
But you wouldn't have it any other way, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I do them both because I love the work.
Yeah,
that's why I ran that group yesterday. But I do all this coaching and consulting work, and in my head, the coach I want to be is like that, every given Sunday coach, or like the football coach who comes into the Tony Robbins, right? Like the guy who comes
Tony Robbins, dude.
And
by the time, dude.
And by the time everybody's done, they're screaming up and down. They're stomping. They're like, fuck yeah. And they run out of the doors. It could be a business meeting, but like, that's what I want. I want everybody like jumping up and down, running and like tackling each other and giving each other high fives, going like, fuck yeah, we're going to rule Monday, right? I'm not that guy at all. I'm logical. I'm understanding. I'm empathetic. I help people talk about things that they're not comfortable talking about, which actually sometimes creates conflict in my meetings. I'm a very different kind of coach, but in my head, the ideal was set by these things that I saw beforehand. And so that's the self-worth piece for me. Like, I have to recognize that, sure, that was what I wished for or what I got attracted to, but it was almost like this wistful concept of knowing that that's there. That's great, but I'm not that guy, and finding value in what I do bring to the equation. And just literally earlier today, I had a message from a woman who was a partner of a client that I had. I haven't seen them in years, but she just wrote me to tell me how much she still to this day appreciates everything they learned through me, and how I have a gift for understanding people, all the stuff we're talking about right now. And like, she didn't have to send me this message. Like, I haven't seen her in 2 years. And how awkward for me, how weird for me to recognize that without external validation, still now, 15, 16, 17 years into the work, it takes somebody else mirroring that, reflecting that back to me for me to really be able to acknowledge it and feel it. Not like, I know I'm good at what I do. People wouldn't hire me. They wouldn't talk to other people about me. They wouldn't pay me a lot of money if I wasn't. But I don't feel, so I know logically I understand it, but I don't feel it like somatically and in my cells again, unless somebody in an unprompted way reflects that back to me. And that's an interesting kind of part of my work now.
That's a whole existential conversation right there.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of things that surround that vision of yourself, looking at yourself from the outside in, that meta awareness that you're describing in this situation.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm grateful. My line of work has allowed me, I tell this to my clients on my online platform. So my online platform is called Ignited. I'll give it a little tiny plug here.
No, you should. This is about that time.
Yeah. It's called IGNTD.com, Ignited. And for less money than a daily cup of coffee, you'll get some of the best mental health support you can get in your life. The goal is to make it affordable and easy to get. Right, we've served thousands of people. I love that work. I still lead a couple of the groups in there, and I tell my clients very honestly that the reason I lead it is selfish. I love doing that work. I feel better after every one of those groups, helping 3 people, 7 people, 1 person, like whoever ends up actually talking in the group. Right, sometimes the group is big, sometimes it's small. I couldn't care less. Like, I show up because I get to be of service and I get to help other people. And it feels really, really, really good for me. And I've literally 1:00 on Tuesday, I'm there. I've been there since early 2017. Like, I've run that group for 8 years. And my entire life has changed in that process. Like, I had 1 child when that 1.5, like 1 was just born. I've got 3 kids now. One of them is a teenager going in high school. Like, my entire life has changed.
That's some purpose, my man. A lot of people don't have the privilege of finding their purpose or recognizing what it is inside of them. And it is a privilege, whether you crawl through the coals or not.
I love it. And I tell people, if you don't know what your purpose is, make it your purpose to find your purpose.
It has to be.
There's no better fuel than purpose. It is. Motivation is bullshit. Motivation is the thing that you try. Like, we get inspired every once in a while. That's great. If you've got purpose, I don't care what time I've got to wake up in the morning. Like, obviously, one of my other massive purposes in life is taking care of my kids and making sure they're healthy and well balanced, and they get to enjoy this world that we have. And so, you take those 2 things. I'll wake up whatever time I got to wake up. I'll do whatever I've got to do that day. I'll fly wherever I have to. Like, nothing else matters. And that. So actually, I'm adding a third: humility, lack of judgment, and purpose are probably the 3 biggest ingredients to what turned me from an 8-ball a day, meth addicted, self-aggrandizing kind of asshole, to the version I am today, which probably still has a little bit of that asshole.
Well, if it doesn't, then how the hell are you teaching others? Right? Because if you don't know yourself, then you're no good with it. You know what? You brought up earlier about knowing yourself and the shitty things that you're capable of and being able to stay in the same room. I call that having lunch with your lion. You need to be able to sit down with them and eat a meal together and enjoy it, because that motherfucker's not going anywhere.
I love that. It's funny. I call it your monster, not your lion. I like your version better, maybe. But I say it's so many of us run away from the monsters inside of us. At some point, we got to realize they're in us. We can't run away from them. You got to turn around, say hello, and go like, "Hey, I'm here. You're here. Let's do. How do we do this?"
Yeah. Otherwise, you spend your whole life running around a circular room.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. By the way, total aside, but it relates to the perspective conversation we have. But it's an aside now. If you want to get the cleanest idea of what I'm talking about in terms of your reality is your reality, and you think it's normal, and this is a hard concept for you, it was a hard concept for me for a long time. But if you're listening to this, maybe you're already enlightened to this. But if you or somebody else has a hard time with this, sit down and watch the movie Room. I don't know if you've never seen it.
No, I haven't. I will now.
Watch this. I mean, there's the book. I read the book too, but whichever is your preference, the movie is just very easy to take. Well, it's easier to absorb, right? It's like 2.5 hours of your life instead of like 4 or 5 days. And you get a very clear picture of, oh my God, when I was a kid, I just assumed anything that was around me was normal. I'll say nothing else because I'll ruin the movie.
I absolutely love that because it's all about the lenses that you wear and how they're comprised over time. No two people are going to see the same thing. You can't swap glasses at the dinner table and, see the same. We always do it. We joke around. Oh, you got bad eyes. Guess what, dude? They're not bad. It's theirs. You just can't see through them. Better talk about where they come from. Otherwise, you're not going to understand. Right? So, Dr. Jaffe, you are an inspiration, and I like to let people know just how important they are. I appreciate you coming on, but I want you to always remember that you are a lighthouse, right? The moment that you find your purpose and you go out there and you start operating day and night as your authentic self, putting that out there, you're giving other people license to do the same, right? There's nothing more important than being yourself, because then that allows the world around you to be theirs. And we only use addictions to feed reasons that we're not being ourselves at the end of the day, right? Yeah. So I appreciate you for that. Thank you so much for being a light for others.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for offering a platform for that. And, I really, really do appreciate it. Unhooked, which is that recent book that I just did, is an attempt to be that light for others. My first book, I heard from people that it helped them, and I felt like it needed some refreshing and another additional layer that wasn't in there before. And I tried to make this book easy for people to get. So I got a friend to draw for it so that there's drawings of complex concept. I can't draw a stick figure.
You got something for me? I'm a little, it takes me time.
I can draw a stick figure, maybe. It's not a good one. And so, I don't think you need to be a college graduate to get help. That would be weird if that became a thing. So I try to really make the concept
you
really
can't get rich without a college degree. You can't get sober without a college degree. You can't that's BS, right?
Yeah, it's such bullshit. But I really tried to make it that lighthouse, like you said. Yeah, I like that metaphor. It is a beacon. It's easy to understand. You know what you're getting from it. It's not overly theoretical. Hopefully, it's kind of just like, a step-by-step, choose your own adventure guide on how to get out of your own way and help yourself find the next place in life.
I absolutely love that. And life is a choose your own adventure, and it's always time. Always time. You could be anything you could literally go to a concert and it could be your moment to jump the fence, get on the stage and grab a guitar. The only thing that's stopping you is either the ability to play or what people might think of you if you do it.
Sure.
Everybody's moment is right there. It just has its own identity. Yeah, so I'm glad you found your purpose. Gives me a great opportunity to help my audience hear about what is out there on the other side of the fence, where potential can take you. So everybody go out there, read the book, get in the groups, and go to our website. You'll see all of the links from the episode today. And again, remember everybody, be cool and keep learning.